Welcome back to Uncensored. Now, over the last few years, images like this have become somewhat familiar when we talk about police officers across the world. In the UK, Met Police Chief Sir Mark Rowley wants to see an end to it, he's saying. Black Lives Matter, Pride, those types of events, a range of other social and cultural issues. From now on, his officers will be told not to take the knee, to not fly rainbow flags or wear badges that support environmental causes. So is this a return to good old-fashioned policing, as some are suggesting, or is it a backward step to a time when the police were seen as enemies by some minorities and marginalised communities? Here to discuss all of this, former police officer of 31 years and director of the Law and Order Foundation, Norman Brennan. In Scotland, strategic advisor on equality, diversity and inclusion for Police Scotland, and former Haringey Police Commander Dr Victor Olisa. And from Los Angeles, we're joined by former BLM activist Xaviaer Durousseau to talk about this internationally as well. But I will begin with Norman here in the studio. Norman, you're a copper of the sort of traditional order, I think I can call you that, and you talk a lot about policing now. What do you make of this move to basically de-woke the police force?
Well, I fully support the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley. The long and the short is that when you join the police service, you join to police all communities. You're there for everyone and everyone. There's nobody that you favour in part on one over another. That's why all police officers must act impartially. And we're told to police without fear or favour. So my main concern is that you should join the police service, wear your uniform, stand straight and strident, kneel to nobody, buckle to nobody. And the only time you kneel or buckle is when you're saving someone's life who's having a heart attack or someone that has been shot or stabbed, and you're placing your hands over to try and save their lives. Apart from that, wear your uniform smart, the same uniform. I don't want to see police vehicles being painted all sorts of colours, and you certainly don't kneel down to anybody. And I think the few officers that did kneel, including one chief constable, will never be doing that again.
I just want to pick up that point you made about without fear or favour. I found that interesting because in journalism, we use that phrase a lot. Being a good journalist means doing so without fear or favour. But of course, journalists are biased. It gets pointed out a lot. Everyone has personal biases. Police officers on the job, they're professional, no doubt, many of them are, but they are going to have inbuilt biases depending on their upbringing or the way they feel about certain topics. So there have been complaints throughout decades of ethnic minorities saying that they felt that they weren't treated fairly by police officers. So do you think any kind of social justice causes helps that?
Well, to be quite honest with you, you say that. Many black people I deal with, I don't look at their colour. Yes, they are black. When I grew up in Wembley, I was known as the white black man. In my rugby team, there were 13 black players and 2 white players. So I grew up with the black community. I went to school with them and I policed with them, and I policed certain areas of London that were black. And do you know what? I policed without fear or favour. A black robber or a burglar, early hours of the morning, stabbed me in the chest when I tried to arrest him for committing 3 armed burglaries. He didn't stab me because I was a white policeman. He stabbed me because he was trying to get away. I didn't arrest him because he was black. I arrested him because he was a robber. So I think all this stuff that we keep hearing in the media, that the police pick on black people or gay people or anybody else, there may be a handful, but I promise you this, you've probably got one of the best, but sadly the weakest police service that we've ever had, but they're the most tolerant we've ever had as well. And I'm afraid tolerance sometimes hasn't worked well in their favour.
Interesting stuff. I want to bring in Victor to this now. He's been listening in. And Victor, you're very involved in diversity and inclusion in the police force. You're listening to those comments from Norman now. Do you agree?
No, I don't agree. There are far too many things that I don't agree with what Norman has just said. And I'd like to start before I go on. I served 35 years in the police service, rose to the rank of chief superintendent, and served in some of the most challenging places. Had the privilege to serve in some of the most challenging places in London, and I'm proud to have been a police officer. Let me start off by Norman saying he doesn't see colour. I think you ought to. I think every single officer who polices any public area should see colour, should see difference, should respect difference. And when we start saying we don't see colour, we don't see difference, that's where the problem starts. Now, Sir Mark has been very clear that the police as an institution, the Met as an organisation, should not be linked to any causes. But that's not the same as an officer who has his or her authority under the Crown as a constable can't show empathy, can't show respect for people who may be suffering, or people who have suffered, or whose community have suffered an injustice. That is very different from actually having a political cause. And as a police officer, one of the things that you ought to have, going on the appealing principle that we're here to protect life, first and foremost, is to be able to show empathy. And I think it is wrong to start quoting woke activities, being woke about anything, and not being a public servant that shows empathy and understanding. And when officers start doing that as individuals and as an organisation, we talk about the good old days of the cop going back to policing and solving crime. Police have never been particularly effective in solving crimes without the public. And if we start saying that some of the areas in which police face the greatest challenges are those areas where people from different protected characteristics lives, if we as an organisation can't make contact, relationship, build trust with them, then we're not going to get, or the police are not going to get the information that they need to solve crime, to be effective, to be efficient, and to earn the trust of all communities.
Victor, thank you. Norman, I'll give you a chance to respond shortly, but want to bring Xavier in on this, listening in from across the pond, the Atlantic, and the Black Lives Matter movement, of course, that started that police taking the knee, and many other people as well. What do you make of the decision then to try and stop this activity within police forces, Xavier?
I think it's a great decision. Police officers need to get back to basics, stop worrying about being woke, and start worrying about being strong. Because I've been Black for 26 years, and I have great relationships with a lot of law enforcement officers. That's because they don't view me as a skin color. They view me as a law-abiding citizen, because that's what I am. And look, I live in Los Angeles, California. I don't even wear my glasses in public anymore because I have seen enough. There is so much crime across our nation because we have a shortage of quality police officers to protect our communities. The reason we have such a shortage is, one, the defund the police movement, and more significantly, police officers are treated like crap, both by the public, but especially by their department heads. And that's only going to worsen if police officers keep being inserted into political discussions. So to avoid that, we need police officers to be just like most professionals in the world and hold their political views until they are off the clock. It's not a police officer's job to enforce their opinions. It's a police officer's job to enforce the law.
Norman, there you go. Xavier agreeing with a lot there, but Victor also calling you out for not seeing colour.
Well, Victor is doing exactly what we're all concerned about. He's saying that we should look at black people and look at them differently. I'm telling you, no, we shouldn't. I'm saying that we should stand up and we should police all communities without fear or favour. And one of the biggest criticisms against the police nowadays, and I was a police officer for 31 years, on a robbery squad for 6 years, is that the number of black suspects, or black people, young men particularly, that are stopped and searched. Well, when 74% of all street robberies, murders and stabbings are committed by young black men, often on other black men, who is it that the police are meant to be stopping? 50% white people to satisfy the black community, and 50% of the black community to satisfy the politicians and the woke brigade? Or if 7 crimes out of every 10 of knife crime, homicide, gun crime is committed by young black men, it's they that we should be targeting. And how anybody can say that is racist, it's beyond me, unless, of course, you stop someone and the connotations of your words or conduct are racist.
We have to give a final word to Victor on that. Victor, unfortunately, we're short of time, but give you an opportunity to respond.
No, of course. Norman is talking about a small part of London. There are people who commit knife crimes in other parts of England. They're not black, okay? They're not 70%. People who commit offences because they are committing offences, not because of their colour, not because of their nationality, not because of protected characteristics. You should police regardless. And if you don't see colour, you don't see difference, you don't see empathy, you don't take into account that black people, as you just said, Norman, you look at the stop and search data, they're disproportionately stopped and searched wherever you go in the UK. That saying, as an institution of policing, black people are criminogenic, that is absolutely wrong. You need to see difference to actually police difference. I'm not saying you should mark out people, give them privileged treatment, but you should understand that by seeing difference, then you stop stereotyping, you stop acting in a way that disadvantages them. That's the reason
Policing without fear or favour, whether you're black, white, or male or female. The long and the short is the majority of police officers do not get the support that they deserve, because the majority are honest, hard-working, caring, non-violent, non-racist. But unfortunately, the narrative tells everyone different. I'm here to speak up for the frontline tens of thousands of honest men and women that are called racist or misogynist when they never are.
Norman, stop it. Majority of police officers are not called racist. The majority of police officers do a good job. There's a handful of police officers who behave badly. Let's talk about those officers, dealing with those officers. Let's don't categorise 90, 98, 99% of police officers, men and women, who do fantastic jobs, who see colour, who see difference, who show empathy, who are the best of public servants. And
all three of you.
We'll agree on that point.
Let's end on that agreement. Unfortunately, straight out of time, but we do want to get all three of you back to continue this conversation. It's been really interesting. Thanks, all three.